With Mike Leach. Mike, we've got some questions for you. You know, we know you've talked about so many great leaders, and you've even wrote a book about one of them. But now I want to know, who do you think is the worst leader?
Well, currently right now, one of them that's at an all-time low benchmark is the U.S. Congress. Their popularity right now is about 15%, and some of that has to do with their inability to make a decision and solve any problems. And the reason is as you gather people together in the vein of political correctness, you know, by definition, it's intellectual dishonesty. They go in there and they're asked, how do you solve a problem? And nobody will be forthcoming with what they really think the answer should be because they don't want to offend anybody else. But in the end, that doesn't search or find solutions. And I think that, well, I think everybody's sick and tired of it. But I've never, you know, and I looked this up the other day, I've never seen a situation where the popularity of our legislature was 15%.
Certainly wouldn't be a good way to run a football team. Now, in a more positive note, of everything that you use today, what do you think was the greatest invention of the 20th century?
Greatest invention of the 20th century. There's a lot of things. You know, there's some things that. Well, there's some things that would easily be overlooked. Greatest invention of the 20th century. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. I would have to say, you know, the ability to utilize electricity, you know, and because that's what everything stems from. I mean, you know, anybody that thinks TV, radios, internets, things like that, that all started with the ability to harness electricity. And then there's obvious ones that people wouldn't think of, like toilets. So I think both are pretty good.
You took a walk with Ashley Adamson of the Pac-12 Network, and she asked you to list every place that you'd lived. And I think it probably took the entire journey from your house down here to list all the places you lived in, everywhere from Pullman to Finland. But if there was a place you haven't lived yet where you could spend a year and get to know the place, where would that be?
I think a good one would be Hawaii. You know, either on Maui or Kauai. Both would be great. Get in great shape, eat great food. You know, improve on surfing, stuff like that.
Speaking of great food, when you're doing these home visits, when you're getting into a recruit's home, talking to their mother, what's the best meal you've ever been served?
Had two. One was Quentin Griffin's mom made some great gumbo one time, and then another Jacob Karam's house just had incredible food. Jacob Karam was a quarterback that played at Tech, and just all over the top great food. You know, I don't know who they got to cook it. He did a tremendous job. Just massively thick steaks, seafood, all kinds of stuff.
We know you coaches will go anywhere to find the best talent. What's the strangest recruiting experience or place you've had or been?
Well, I've been to places that have dirt floors, as you know, as the furniture, maybe old furniture, and you sink clear to the floor, and as your fingers drag along the floor, you may reach underneath and discover that the rug is over the top of a dirt floor. This particular place seemed like a real pleasant place. It's almost a cul-de-sac, and it was in Florida, and yeah, there were shacks, but there were kids out there running around having a good time. There were goats running around, and then you know, inside you could see, or outside you could see the houses just wired, you know, by you know, just kind of duct tape wire setups that were running the TVs and the electricity and things. But you know, kids were out there playing wiffle ball, chasing goats, riding you know, little bikes or toys, and it seemed to be a remarkably happy place, even though there wasn't a lot of money involved. And then another guy I recruited in on the St. Louis side of St. Louis, and I mean, it was the worst slum I've ever been to, worse than East St. Louis, for example. And there were a series of row houses, and about well, when we first drove up, we asked directions. The guy came to the car and says, "What do you need?" He said, you need women, you need drugs, what are you guys looking for?" And so We said, no, we're just looking for this house. He says, all right, we'll go right over here. So we go over there. Anyway, so about every third house is inhabited. Vehicles are on carjacks. Things have been stolen. Windows are broken. You know, things are spray painted. But I mean to the point, kind of a war zone quality, to the point where about only a third or a fourth of the houses within those couple of blocks were even inhabited. And you know, the cars thrashed, and you know, that type of stuff. You know, weapons at the front door in case they got in a bad situation, that type of thing. It was a very rough area, and you know, this guy had a very caring mother. Two of his brothers had a rough time and were, you know, well, you know, of course, we're in prison and things, but this particular guy, she sent him to, you know, worked 3 jobs, sent him to a private school, and he's a high school football coach. So, you know, just a very impressive path he had.
Well, thank you for taking the time to answer a few questions today, Mike.
All right, thank you.